Mute yourselves. Mute yourselves. Mute yourself. Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome, everyone. I don't know what's going on.
Hi, everybody.
So, I don't know what's going on, but for some reason, we're having some technical issues today. Welcome to Technical Issues as well. So, today, our broadcast or session is going to be, for me, I think what's a very important one. Why is it that human beings actually think that we need to declare war on illness and what we call disease? Now, the word is not even disease, it's dis, and ease. So we're not at ease in our bodies. That's how I interpret it. We're not at ease in our bodies. That's what called the disease. So disease is created after the body has many times over tried to get our attention, and we have been trained, very well trained, how to ignore it and to push through all the different signs and all the different signals. And there are many different signals. The body is this incredible piece of technology that always is working on our behalf and working for our highest health, personification of health. And so when we delay or ignore all the signals that our bodies need our attention, it creates dis-ease to get our attention. So what we run literally to a medical facility and we start getting tests for things like this. And this to me is where all disease starts. That's why I'm putting up the colon. So this is the large intestines, not the small intestines. And then we end up getting tested to see exactly what's going on in different areas of our bodies. And then the decision is often made to cut out a part of it. Now, if you have cancer in the colon, or any of us can have it and not know it, because it takes 10 years before cancer actually shows up in the body, then yes, I understand them, that maybe to cut out this actual polyp in the colon will bring a tremendous amount of relief, but it doesn't take care of the problem. Why did the polyp actually get formed in the intestines in the first place? That's where we need to go. We need to see what is the root cause of it, because the polyp is not the problem. It's why it was formed, because we were getting signals before, and the biggest signal, and we didn't listen. So we kept getting bigger and bigger signals, and this is the biggest one that it gives us is the polyp. So this is not the disease. The polyp is not the illness. When we have pain in our joints, the joint is not the problem. It's our lifestyle. It's something we are doing or not doing or undoing that's creating the problem. So by having shoulder replacement surgery, knee replacement surgery, you cannot replace a knee or a shoulder, but that's what it's called. We give it these fancy names so that we can feel better about ourselves. Shoulder replacement surgery, knee replacement surgery. And then we find that at the beginning, yes, of course, there's pain after surgery. But at the beginning, yes, we find that we might get some relief. But eventually, the problem either persists in the same area or goes elsewhere. And so we think, okay, so the pain in the shoulder or the knee is, we use the word cured, but now I have a pain in my ankle. It's the same problem. It's just that it has gone somewhere else now because the problem still exists. The root cause is still there. So we haven't really addressed the problem, which is our lifestyle or our own lack of presence in our own lives. Because all the body wants is for us to be present for it. Just like if you go into your parents' home and there's a family gathering and not one person pays attention to you, not for the from the moment you enter until 2 hours later, not one person pays attention to you. Although you put on your fancy garb, you've made all the things that you know your family's like for to bring to them as gifts, and not one person acknowledges it. How do you feel? This is what we do to our bodies. This is exactly what we do. So the body learns how to scream and yell in order to get our attention. And what we're seeing that human beings are doing is we end up actually deciding that we are now at war with our bodies. So we then declare war on certain body parts, or we call the problem, we give we don't go to the root of the problem. We go to the manifestation of it in the body, and always manifests in the weakest spot, and then we call it a disease. We have to fight these battles against diabetes, a battle against cancer, a battle against Alzheimer's. But the problem has not been addressed ever. And what's this battle? We battle by using these different armaments, these weapons of antibiotics, first of all, when they don't work, and it seems like they work at the beginning, but I cannot go into the whole drama of antibiotics because it's an entire episode. But when they don't work, when that doesn't work, then we go into different modalities, or should I say armaments and weapons. So we can laser it, we can also radiate it, we can cut it out at the very end. But if this is what the root of the problem is, look at this, if this is the root of the problem, look on the right side of your screen, you will see what a healthy colon looks like. There's no gas, no bloating, no constipation, no inflammation, no buildup of excess or old fecal matter. Now, if you go to the left, you'll see what an unhealthy colon looks like. You will see that bits and pieces of the colon have been reduced to just a sliver. Look at the descendant colon on the right, going towards the rectum, and look at the rectum, how inflamed it is. Look at all that inflammation. So to say to the human being, we're going to have to battle this, we're going to radiate this, we're going to, whatever, however, the polyp or whatever it shows up, is ignoring that this is the root of the problem, that we have to first get rid of all the impacted fecal matter that for years has accumulated in the colon, and that we keep actually pushing more things down into the colon, which it cannot handle. Just like when the kitchen sink is blocked up, we need to call a plumber to actually clean it out. We don't keep pushing more things in it, because when the sink is clogged up, you can push certain things down there. We have these things that for Drano and drainage things that we put down, but after a while, it doesn't work anymore. None of that stuff works anymore. It's the same thing. You have to go to the root of the problem and get a plumber who will come and clean it all out. But we in society have decided, no, we're not doing that. What we're just going to do is cut out the offending part of the colon instead. But eventually, the other parts of the colon also get affected. So we either burn, cut, we declare war by burning, cutting, or numbing. Sometimes we just numb it, we radiate it, we do all these things to it. So we've declared this incredible war on our body, when the body needs the opposite of war. It actually wants our full attention, our surrender to the laws of nature, to the very laws that we need to abide by when we live in a physical body here on this dense plane. And we need to start really focusing on what it is that makes us human. What makes us human is that we have a human body. Now, on the left here, you'll see a healthy colon. You will see an impacted colon here in the middle. I hope you can see this. If you cannot, and you can magnify your screen, then please go ahead and do so. And then to the right, you will see a very impacted colon. By the time that most diseases show up, this is what the impacted colon looks like. And then eventually, the ones that I showed you before. So when it's like this, you can still help. You can still do something about it. You could still have a turnaround, a big turnaround. You just have to clean it out, just like you would when the actual garbage disposal unit clogs, or your toilet clogs, or your sink is clogged up. You just have to clean it out. So in other words, you have to stop pushing things in it. And so in order not to push things down into the colon, you have to stop eating. So this is very, very important to be aware of, that the only way that we can actually heal this is by healing ourselves. All our addictions, all of the ways in which we neutralize the healing aspects of our own selves, the magical aspects of ourselves, because the body has been programmed to heal. The fact that it allowed us for 10 years to go around with these impacted colon is because it's been pushing the body itself has been working to heal us. And it's been giving us signals which we ignored by taking antibiotics or going to doctors who give us all these pills to just numb it, or to just, in truth, not even look to see what the root cause is. So we also then, this will lead to emotional pain. Because if we're not taking care of the physical body, then the emotions will get our attention. We start feeling less than, we start feeling victimized, we start feeling like everything is against us, even our bodies is against us. The body is not against us. It cannot be against us. It is actually the opposite. The body frequency of the body, whether it's a frequency of illness or frequency of tremendous health, is just a gift. That's all the illness is. It's just a gift. It's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to stay away from. It's not something to run away from. And it's definitely not something to pacify. So when the emotional pain takes over, that's when we usually start looking for the solutions. So having said that, I am going to actually bring on my co-hosts. And I see Lisa, her actual internet again is acting up, but Sabina is here. We haven't seen Sabina. I haven't seen Sabina in a while. Hi, Sabina. But I'm going to bring on Pete first. And Pete, why do you think human beings have declared war on illnesses and disease when they're there to actually get our attention? And which one of the most loving ways that the body addresses that it needs our attention?
Yes, we've just lost the connection, and the movies and the doctors, we just prescribe blindly, I would say, to a kind of very programmed systems we have. And the mothers, the grandmothers, it's as if the wisdom hasn't been passed down, and I would say more Western kind of thinking, I call it westernized, has infiltrated really a lot of the connected indigenous cultures. We would have once been more connected, and our grandmas, or we just don't listen as well because many things have been made out to kind of, let's just say, scrutinize the elders in different ways, so we can get more caught up, the younger generation, in our egos, and like we believe we know it all because we've read it, we've seen it on a movie. So, we've lost a lot of a connected intuition, and listening to ourselves. If our parents were more that way and the education system gave us more tools for that, we could connect back to our own innate connection. So then we would know, you know. I saw a great one, was it a post on an Instagram? It's just like what we do when we see the warning card, warning signs. You know, this guy's got a drill and just drilling the warning light off his dashboard, just drilling it so it just turns off. So, you know, we never go to the root, you know. That's very much how I see us as humans are. I was so that person. So, you know, sometimes I remember, Doreet, you find it extreme to believe that, you know, when Phil mentioned we just go and numb ourselves down the pub or whatever, you know, in terms of more stressful situations. So some cultures, we've come from a culture, I've come from a system that we just drown our emotions, you know. Men don't really talk about their emotions as much. And, you know, it could be classed as weak going back in the day to express your emotions. I would say, fortunately, I had 3 sisters. So, you know, I would hear them expressing themselves. So I would realize I would be expressing in a very similar way and seeing that as normal, you know. So we've lost a connection, and the education, we get educated about all these other things, but the most important, our body and how to treat our body, should be in the curriculum, you know. So, I mean, there's a good reason. We know why there is that reason that is not in place. You know, it comes down to sort of follow the dollar, follow the money. So we have to empower ourselves, really. And this is why programs like this is great. And, you know, starting up as many programs like this as we can and getting people on there, sharing their story. And I'm just so grateful for all the potential, what we class as illnesses. You know, in retrospect, they are just all opportunities, you know, and each one of them, I would not have got to see the beauty in able to go to the root of them problems, you know, and being so happy in my life, joyful, and sharing some root causes of potential problematic issues that resolve in hospitals, and, you know, the more severe war on the body, where it doesn't have to be war, you know, like you mentioned, it's just a dis-ease, like a disorder, you know, all these DIS words, you know. So we get rid of the DIS and become back into ease, come back into order, you know, come back into connection from disconnection. So, you know, and we could say, how would you do that? Well, you know, you just really shown examples, diagrams of that, in terms of really cleaning out our system. And we MOT our cars, we service our cars, we service the boiler, we service the washing machine, etc., etc. We want it to last long. So, you know, why don't we just bring that back to our bodies, you know, and not see it as normal that your uncle or your dad died at 50, 60. You know, to me, that's just unnormal. That is what got me on this journey, because that just didn't make sense. You know, so we've normalized it. Hospitals have normalized it. The media has normalized it like it's normal, all these labels. And it's just, to me, it's not normal. It's just excess in eating, processed foods, you know, more toxic foods going in the body that is causing all this harm. And you mentioned polyps, tumors, you know, that's the body protecting you, doing its best to protect you. So by eliminating the very things that have caused that, all the more toxic processed foods and potential makeups and certain sun blocking creams, all these things and many, many more, you start eliminating them and educating yourself, and then eating lighter and cleansing, and then you can dissolve that yourself, you know. So yeah, education on making more priority in hospitals, schools, and in families, really, you know, the man and woman, the parents, really, me looking back, we should really wise up and educate for ourselves, for our children. Otherwise, yeah, it's inevitable that we're going to be losing a lot of our close family if we don't, you know. And we're handing them over. It's like we're acquiescing to a system that isn't that caring, that isn't very conscious, that isn't very aware. And to me, you know, we need to be more sovereign, really more sovereign.
Thank you for that. I'm going to bring in Sabina. Sabina, you are a mother, and when you were a new mother, I don't know how you were actually addressed by the medical profession. I know you wanted to do it naturally. I remember that episode. We did very well about that. But did anyone at all in the medical field, because A ended up there at the end, quite a story. I wish people want to hear that story. They really ought to listen to the episode which we did 2 weeks ago. Did any one of them tell you about breastfeeding and what to expect and prepare you? Or like some people who have come to see me tell you not to breastfeed, because I think that the disconnection with our bodies begin there, because the child doesn't learn how to connect to the mother's body, then it cannot connect to its own body and might even see it as the enemy. How do you feel about this?
So I had a midwife and a doula preparing me, and of course they would highly encourage breastfeeding. And I did a lot of work before, different areas I looked in, and I was very clear I'm going to be breastfeeding. And I did breastfeed for about, I think, a year and a half. But it was challenging at the beginning. I didn't have any milk, but I kept persisting. And my partner at the time said, "Why don't we just get formula?" And I was like, "No, I'm gonna." So I got my pump, and I felt like, I pumped several weeks until I finally got the milk. I was very dedicated. It was very uncomfortable, constant pumping, and it was very painful. But I'm glad I did it, because my son is 18. He has really never been sick. So even he is not in a perfect diet. He eats all kinds of junk food and processed food when he's with his dad. But I would make sure at the beginning, all he gets is organic, lots of fruits and vegetables. So I think that I laid a good foundation with the breastfeeding, with the right diet at the beginning, to the point that he can even eat not the perfect diet and still not get sick. So that's regarding breastfeeding. But I just want to add something that, Pete said, that we are not being taught that in school. We don't get the right education. So I really believe, we live in an inverted world. Like, people doing the opposite of what's actually natural, which is very sad. So the way is always to get back to the natural way. What did our ancestors do? What does actually feel common sense to do? Because doesn't make sense to put chemicals in our body and artificial, like what's it called, what they give babies, these formulas. They're loaded with chemicals. It doesn't make sense. So the goal is always to get back to nature, get back to simplicity, get back to what is common sense.
Thank you for that. I'm going to bring in Lisa here. We lost her earlier. Lisa, hi, welcome back.
Hello.
So can you tell us, Lisa, why do you think we have felt a need to declare war on illness and disease?
I think that as a society, we are so disconnected from our essential being, our essential nature, and we are programmed and directed to seek outside. We don't have inner authority. We feel like we have to defer to doctors who prescribe medicines. And I'm seeing it in my own life with somebody that I deeply love, that you're discouraged by the people around you. This is why you have to be super careful about who you surround yourself with, to stray outside of the narrative and to look for, to seek your own inner authority, because I believe that we know exactly what we need to do. I really do. I feel like if we listen to ourselves, and for many of us, it requires a lot of deprogramming. It requires just baby steps with your self-trust. But each time you reach for something that you're guided to do, I really recommend that you honor that, you celebrate that, to remember that you have the ability to take care of your body. We're a living system. We're so much more sophisticated than AI, but we have an inner authority. We have, whether it comes from your spiritual connection or some voice or whatever you want to call it, we really know intrinsically what we need to do, what we can do to support our own healing. And it is not by taking pills, which create more side effects. And I'm not saying that if you're guided to do that, it's wrong. But I'm saying be open to what is in front of you. Be open to what your body is telling you. Be open to when you eat something and you go, oh my, I feel pleasure. I feel energy. Or I ate this and I don't feel good. I feel sad. I feel depressed. Just paying attention to those signals and trusting yourself over time will give you and seeking counsel from people like Doreet or Sabina or Pete, people that have listened to themselves maybe for years, or maybe it's a new process for them. And what are you doing that's working for you? And it doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily work 100% for you, but over time, you're going to find what is best for your own being. And I think that's so important. Just to cultivate that relationship with yourself, so you learn to trust your instinct and you learn to be guided to things that really facilitate your deeper healing. Because like everybody said, disease is really about your body trying to wake you up. And it can be your friend or your foe. So as a friend, what are you telling me? What am I missing? What do I need to know? What haven't I looked at? What do I need to heal here? How do I get back into balance? Our body has wisdom. It's just trying to be your ally when it's waking you up. And if you're not listening to the whisper, it's going to give you a giant earthquake to get your attention. Like, hey, this is crisis time now because you haven't been paying attention. So again, I just want to celebrate each person that's listening, that's facing challenges, whether it's mental health issues, whether it's physical challenges, whether you're on a lot of medications and you want to liberate yourself and start to let go of those and find a new path. It can be done. It really can be done. Your family history is not your reality. You can change the trajectory of your life and future generations simply by just questioning what you believe and where you want to head.
Also, look at the fact that we actually have an interesting society now where when we look at our grandparents and great-grandparents and their parents, they didn't have any of these illnesses and diseases. And we have a plethora. We have so many wonderful names for them now. We've actually been very creative by finding new names for the exact same issue, disconnection with self. To me, that's the real illness, disconnection with self. Now, Pete, you actually had something interesting, an incident that was very interesting to me was the accident. And I don't think there are any accidents in life, but this was very, very interesting to me because you actually, are you feeling like you're all healed now, or are you still in the process of actually learning more about your body from the injury? And what did you learn? And would it have helped you if you declared war on the injury?
Thank you. Hi, everyone, by the way. Great to see you all. I say, yeah, I've come a long way from the incident. I say I'm healed from it. I'd just say there's probably residue, fatigue in the body, but that's expected. That's fine. I've come a long way in leaps and bounds. And yeah, declaring war. I mean, that's such an ugly term, isn't it? To declare war on something that is illusory, really. It's a deflection. It's a distraction. We're going down the wrong path. So this time round, I knew what was necessary. I was calm and relaxed, and that's what most of us are missing. We're so tired. most of us are just so tired that we don't have the capacity to sit in stillness and to see and have awareness. And most of us are disconnected. It's not entirely our fault. We have, of course, we have a responsibility, but like many others have mentioned here, it's the systems, how it's set up. You know, we're just constantly bombarded and distracted. We're confused. We don't know who to trust. So it comes down to awareness, and that can only happen if we are relaxed and rest. And sometimes we're forced in that position. You know, many of us change the course of our lives through like a disaster or a tragedy. You know, we fall ill, we have an accident, like Lisa mentioned, you know, certain signals, our body's giving us signals. And the way our society and establishments are set up, it's to beat down these signals, these symptoms. Pete mentioned earlier, it's a great analogy about the guy drilling out the warning light. That's what we do. We're confused. So yeah, it really comes down to being relaxed and having awareness and being sensitive to your body. And just, yeah, there's a beautiful lyric, Bob Marley, open your eyes and look within. Are you satisfied with the life you're living? That come through to me a lot at a time when I first fell ill and had a really bad accident. And I wasn't satisfied with the way I was being treated by the medical establishment, by society. And that led me on a path of self-discovery and inquiry. And that led on to like cleaning out my diet, looking at alternative methods, and eventually realizing the truth of it all.
And what was the gift of this recent accident?
Wow, that's a great question. What was the gift of this? For me, the gift was rest, actually, a reset. It gave me, because I found myself, I was tired leading up to that. Found myself being distracted in wanting to pursue certain things and missing out on certain aspects of life. So that was a beautiful thing that come from it. It gave me time to rest and opportunities that come from that. You know, I had a beautiful time in Morocco with Pete, and so much I experienced, so much joy, so much love, so beautiful, gave me such an enriching experience. And that was partly born from the accident. You know, I needed a new environment, sunshine, really good fruit, and some decent rest. And some kind of inspiration to get out on the bike again, away from the area that I'm at. Yeah, that's what I take from that. That was the gift.
Thank you for that. And we go back to the fact that most people might be watching would not know that you are a professional cyclist. And like most people are athletes, they tend to push themselves and not see rest as equally important as time spent on the road or at the gym or wherever it is that they practice their sport or their athleticism. And that rest has to be just as equally important. So that's the body's inner wisdom coming through and say, okay, you won't stop? I'm going to stop you. Let's do this. So instead of looking at any of these issues, whether it is an injury or a polyp or anything that's going on that's stop us and have us come to a full stop, they're saying, whoa, a full stop in my life. How marvelous. Now I have a wonderful excuse to go internally and really get to know my body and myself. We go to these people who have these degrees and we're told we're going to fight this. I promise you, we're going to fight this and you're going to win. What I think is necessary, on whether it's an injury or an illness, is the practice of sweet surrender. That's what I teach, and that's what I do with my clients, because I think that's all that's missing. So I'm going to go to Sabina. Sabina, I know that you have had some occasions in your life lately with grief and the different things that have happened that you have experienced. How have you, in your own life, surrendered to each of this rather than fight them? And how did that assist you more than having made the decision to fight it or not to fight it?
Well, I have given up fighting quite a while ago, especially being a single mom, going through divorce and through a very intense breakup. I was always a fighter. I would fight it until I make sure I win, and I was relentless. And there were actually a few moments in my life that taught me that there's no point of fighting. Let's just surrender. And the biggest one was actually when I was not just heartbroken, but also bedridden. I got Lyme disease in 2017, was right after the breakup from my partner. So I was heartbroken, bedridden, and broke on top because he left, he took everything. And yeah, I set myself in an empty house that I couldn't pay. I wasn't able to move on the bed. I was in such pain. And that was the moment I decided it's time to surrender, no longer fight. And first I'm going to fight him. I make sure I get all my stuff. It would take all my belongings, beautiful things. I make sure I get it all back. But then I actually worked with a shaman who told me to surrender. And I went on a fast. I surrendered all eating habits. I surrendered fighting my ex. And that was a really big shift, and learning to be with that pain and just sitting in the pain, feeling the pain. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons that I ever had, that prepared me for all the other stuff that would come down the pipeline. Because it didn't just end there, because I realized, okay, once I went through that, then the rest of my life is a breeze. But of course, life kept throwing more and more challenges at me and more moments to surrender. And yeah, it's been a journey, but I would say only the last few years I finally got to the place in my life where I feel I'm mostly within, I'm at peace. Even outside it's not at peace, but I have learned to find the peace within. And that was over all these years of learning to surrender. And when my dad passed, I surrendered, and I just love this man. Even he was abusive, I just loved him deeply for who he is. And I had actually a beautiful experience. I was with him when he was passing. So that allowed me actually to be strong and be there for him when my sister was breaking down in tears and like, oh my God, what we're gonna do? I was the one who was calm and surrendered and held the space for the transition. Yes, and that was all through these moments of surrendering, when the universe kept throwing, stuff at me, like all hell break loose. And it happened many times in my life, to the point that other people would say, Sabina, why are you having these intense situations? What's happening? And I realized that was the training ground for me, because I'm here for something greater in this world. I know that. And I had to go through this, and also to really find the peace within myself, so I can hold the space for peace and to no longer react no matter what's happening.
I like that you use the word react, because that's exactly what I think we do when we give our power away to outer manifestations of what we call the society, which is the people with their degrees, all these degrees. And believe me, someone who has way too many degrees, myself, I know they're worth nothing. None of them ever come through when you're going through a really rough time. None of those degrees mean anything. So to give our power away to people who tell us we're going to fight this, you're going to come through, you'll see, we're going to fight this together, and we're going to give you everything that you need to fight this. I think that is exactly going against what the gift the body has given us, with all of these illnesses and accidents and injuries and all the different gifts that the body gives us, that we have somehow been able to push away from our daily level of consciousness and pretend either it doesn't exist, or I'll take care of this another time. You cannot take care of the body another time. This is the only time we have the body, and the only thing that we have is the present moment. And if the body is yelling and screaming at us to take care of ourselves through an injury, through an illness, which actually is a disease, that's all it is, just disease, because that's what gets our attention, then we're going to find that by fighting and fighting and fighting everything in life, we only become so exhausted that we end up not having the energy that we need, that the body needs to heal itself. So what ends up happening is that the cysts and the polyps become even larger because now we don't have the energy anymore to address this. So we're exhausted, we're tired all the time. The colon ends up looking frazzled and frailed and even broken, just like the one on the left, because we use up all of our energy in pretending that they don't exist. We have a colon. I keep going back to the colon because to me, this is where all disease starts. This is not what creates the disease, but this is where it starts. So that's why I think it's really important for us to be aware that whatever we feel, our organs feel. Whatever we think, that's the thought we're sending to our organs. And so we have to really clean up ourselves and clean up everything that Elisa calls it giving the authority outside of ourselves and start being the internal authority within ourselves. So, Pete, I know that you've also had a lot of issues, oral health. What gifts did that give you, the oral health? I mean, you've got through amazing pain, even torture, I would think, with all of that mercury in your mouth. How many teeth again did you have?
Yo, by the time I was 16, I worked it out. I had an 18 amalgam, you know, and I think that started from potentially the age of 7. So, and I would be gassed, you know, you put out. So going back and revisiting that, yeah, it's just like a war zone in my mouth, you know, literally a war zone, because unfortunately, you know, mother at the time wasn't very well read on that part of the story. So I have the story was all 6 of us marched down to the dentist. So yeah, that was really war in my mouth. So, and then you got amalgamation of mercury in your mouth. So you got them toxicity, or that toxicity in your body. So never mind about the drilling, the grinding, you know, like a building site in my mouth. What happens to that energy, you know? So many years down the line, when I managed to come out of the fight or flight, I had to revisit that, you know, literally revisiting times that the pain in my mouth. So that was kind of a horrific story. I mean, that was one of a few. So, you know, there are people with root canals and all these teeth stories. Really, even if we're being put out or any surgery, at some time we have to address the body's memory or the body's shock or the cut, etc. You know, or we carry on through life, just keep numbing and you know, acquiescing to the pharmaceutical system. You know, so ultimately it's just like drug dealers, aren't they, really? You know, it's all 180 return, really. And you know, if we was to look at them 2 pictures, I mean, come on, people, honestly, that is how our intestine is looking, especially when we're so backed up. Who wants to be in that state, you know? And you know, when we got, I mean, unhealthy, and the other one where the intestine collapses and we have issues or irritable bowel syndrome. You know, sometimes it's no wonder when you think the toxins that we are putting in our body that just sits in our colon for days, some people many days, you know, so it's eaten away our colon, you know. So how do we get back to that? You know, yeah, we do cleanses, do fasting, do water fasting, do different things, you know, yeah, like Lisa said, step by step, you know. And, you know, so if you look at that, really take them pictures in. Who really wants to have, you know, the unhealthy colon and the very impacted colon? You know, no, thank you. You know, I look back in the day, yeah, I would have been that person, you know, 3-4 meals a day, you know, and it's, so I would have been that very person. However, once again, we talk about how the body's compromised, so I had that put upon me in terms of my mouth from very earlier on, and then had them in my mouth for 27 years, so what I know now, there was a constant friction going on all the time. So, how do you come to calmness with that going on? So that was really interesting when they came out. So much changed. And then, like you mentioned, Doreet, it's quite interesting. I'm putting loads of my notes I've done over years together. And the seed is coming from, us before we even conceive. How are we? How clean are we? How backed up are we? Or how is our frequency, like a field? Before we conceive, how is the seed? How is the earth that the seed is going to be planted in? How are we as farmers in terms of good and educated to nurture that seed so we get a good crop? So that's what we would be wise to adopt to us as species before we conceive. And then, the environment the woman's in terms of through pregnancy, are we going to, as men, really try and provide the best relaxed environment? Doesn't mean pander to sort of nonsense, but it means create the best environment we can in any given situation we can. We it's wise to do the best. So rather than the feed drama, we support each other to come out of drama, and keep a transparent relationship in terms of who we communicate with. It's wise, like Lisa said, who are we sharing? Who are our friends? If anyone's going to support me in sort of drowning my sorrows or moaning about other people, moaning about women, etc. It's just like, I tell them straight away, well, that's just your inner turmoil. That's your inner nonsense that's going on. Stop, look at yourself, keep projecting out. It's your distraction, your addiction from running away from being accountable for looking at yourself, especially as men, as we're not really taught to express our emotions, so people become scapegoats. Women can become scapegoats. Children can become the conduit of the repressed man and the repressed women, So to me, it all does come back to us before we conceive, and then how educated we are, how connected we are to really nurture the seed, the child, and do our best. Of course, we all may make mistakes, but we still go back and keep doing our best and learn from them mistakes, not looping, keeping the same story going. And again, I will reiterate, people have got so used to people just being ill and dying. It's just like and accepting just the hospitals and the doctors, which is just basically keeping them in a loop, So it is really wise to seek certain counsel, seek other people, seek outside the box, because it is very sad, but I'm not going to attach to that, to see that. And me, youngest of 6, seeing 2 siblings pass, seeing my mum pass, seeing friends pass, and seeing it doesn't have to be that way. However, so all I do is I change, and then I be an example of that and share whoever wants to hear that and support whoever I can on my journey. So we be the change, and that's is really to me the new earth. We'll keep looking out. Oh, I've got to get this land, I've got to get this and that, and wait for this. And before you know it, you're dead. It's like we work all our life for retirement, and then most people in the next few years, they pass away, etc. So it's now. Let's not wait for the so-called future, and why I find things happen in terms of I look back in retrospect, why these big shocks and accidents happen is because I'm not present. I look back, wasn't present. So the more present, connected you get, the more you are navigating through your life in a very more relaxed nervous system. Your nervous system is more regulated. So you're taking being more accountable for your energy field, for your frequency, so it's not spilling all over the place, so the outside realms manifest that story. And there are opportunities, so there's no so-called good or bad per se. It's just like there are opportunities, you know, going back, if I work on tools, if I've been doing some other kind of activity and I come into physical, and if I haven't really focused, then accidents happen. You know, we jump in cars, you know, it's like jumping in a car, driving a car when you've just finished yoga or a therapy session. It's just like, it's very wise to ground. So yeah, I won't go on more, but yes, wise to do all you can to get back to the connection that we all innately have, and we all have had, and, you know, bring in the best things we can to make our body feel good and to reinforce that connection.
So my question now to everyone is, the enforcers for the battle and the war against disease and illness, who are the enforcers for you? So I know that in all the rest of the English-speaking world outside the United States, one of the enforcers, one of the main enforcers, is called the chemist, because it used to be a chemist. You'd go there and you'd get your different herbs that were made specifically for you. It would be all these different kinds of tinctures and remedies that were made for you. Now they're not. They're made by industries and companies now. So in the United States, the chemist, what used to be the chemist, called a pharmacy, I think is a much more fitting word, because the chemist no longer exists almost. So what I never say the word pharmacy, because I studied and I got one of my first degrees was in linguistics, because I saw as a child the importance of language, and I heard language being misused all the time to numb ourselves and to pretend that things, to be delusional, really. And so I never called these a pharmacy. So the other day I was walking somewhere and somebody said to me, do I make a right or left at the pharmacy? And I said, yes, do make a left at the drug cartel, because that's what it is. And I think we call it what it is. We will not go in there. And I needed to get tissues, and I usually use the ones from bamboo or from hemp. And somebody said to me, and I think that's pharmacy that you refuse to go into. I think they have them. And I said, no, I will not go to a drug cartel for anything. And they thought, and so somebody said, aren't you exaggerating a bit? And I said, absolutely not for me. That is not an exaggeration in any way, shape, or form. And I think if we start naming things exactly what they are, it will change what we do, and we can stop giving our power away to them. So having said that, Sabina, you are actually far away. You're in the woods. When you are feeling that you need some additional assistance or help, do you turn to homeopathy, or do you go to herbs, or you just fast and rest?
Well, I usually fast, but I haven't really had any. I mean, the only challenge I sometimes have, like I fell one day on my knee, and then I fasted for 3 days. My knee was swollen and in pain, and I could barely walk. I fasted 3 days and it completely gone. So usually that's my first remedy, is fasting. Second one, I would sometimes take herbs. Yeah, I couldn't sleep for a while, but it was more emotional. So I was going to different herbs, such as valerian root, for supporting me sleeping. But it was just a temporary, but that's usually it. I don't go to any of these what you just mentioned, drug cartels, unless it's something, you know, for the household. Sometimes I need something, but I also try to buy more consciously, more recycled papers, and just a little more upgraded version than what they offer. But I think Mother Nature provides the medicine that we need, and that's the true pharmacy. And especially what Herb and Lisa have on their background, that's my pharmacy. But the best option is always to give your body the rest and the break, you know, to get grounded, stop eating, go into nature, do some deep breathing, get some sunlight exposure, early morning sunrise. And that's really the medicine that has have worked for me the best.
And with you, one of the things I always recommend to people and to myself is go find a waterfall and sit by it or sit in it. Because you get all the 5 elements in a waterfall. Is your waterfall working now, or is it too cold still?
Well, right now it's just trickling a little bit. It usually takes a lot of rain and then it starts gushing. Right now it's still on the smaller side, but it's on. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to bring in Lisa and then Herb, and I want you to wrap us up, please. What do you want to leave people with, those people who are very, very involved with the drug cartels and the medical, what we call the medical profession?
I love what you said about the drug cartels, because truly I think people don't see the truth of what happens. And I've watched this, like I said, firsthand with 2 people I love dearly, where they are given things that on paper are supposed to help them and have turned into really destructive things that have affected them in all levels. So I think what is important is to, again, return to your inner authority, to stay open to the idea that the beliefs that you have about your well-being, about what you should do, instead of looking outside of yourself, whether it's an influencer, whether it's a doctor, all of this noise. I think we have way too much noise, too much information. We're always like being inundated with things that have agendas behind them. And that's what I was thinking, how beautiful it is that you have these people that are sharing truths with really nothing to gain, but you win when you can look at the people around me and see that they embody health and wisdom. And so I think it's important just to really stay open to the idea that you too can have this life and in your own way, and really live with peace and health, because when you have health, you have everything. You've won the lotto when you have health. Mental health, physical health, spiritual health, all of it matters.
Absolutely. Lisa, that is perfect what you just said, that you've won the lotto when you have your health intact. And it's okay to lose your health, and you need to lose your health from time to time in order to put everything in perspective and to actually restart really approaching the body with a reverence that is so lacking, I think. So I think Phil is trying to come on. I'd like to put him on before we go, but I think he's having problems coming on. So I'm going to go to Herb. Can you take us out, Herb, please?
Yeah. Wake up. I don't know if you can see this. Wake up and smell the flowers. Ask yourselves, if you're not enjoying the gifts of nature, something is fundamentally wrong with us. And this, for me, is so nourishing and enriching. It's invigorating, and it gives you a moment to pause, to rest, to recalibrate, and embrace and enjoy the beauty of life, which we so often miss. Many of us touch on it, reconnecting with nature. That gives us that time, that space, that rest. And, what you touched on is so true. Gut health, and there's a link between gut health and mental health. And for me as well, I think at the core of everything is disease actually begins in the mind as well. Most of our thoughts is what holds us back. It's the barriers that prevents us from realizing and seeing clearly. And I love what you described about the cartel, the drug cartel. Say it how it is. It's the truth. People may say it's extreme, but it's the truth, and the truth can be shocking. And without that shock, we won't necessarily wake up and realize. So yeah, say it how it is. It's the same with animal products. People say meat. Well, you're actually eating animal flesh. You're eating dead bodies. You're eating carcasses. It's the same thing. People say, "Oh, that's a bit extreme," but it's the truth. If we speak truthfully, then things will change. And yeah,
Thank you so much for that. And we have 10 seconds for Phil to say something. But your mic isn't on, and by the time you turn it on, we're gone. So thanks to everybody for tuning in today. Join us again next week and share this with those who need to hear.